This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. And we're broadcasting from gorgeous Old Town Scottsdale, Arizona, where it's either heaven or hell. And right now it's heaven, but in a few months it'll be hell. But we have a very important show for you, all of you who are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs or dream of becoming an entrepreneur, because it's a great way to live, but it's also got its challenges and its problems. So this is Steve, and he's one of Nectar, Kim?
Steve Schultz. He's a co-founder and CEO of Nectar Juice Bar, Nekter. And I'm a fan of Nectar. I go there often. It's right down the street from our office. And it's just a great story because Steve's kind of reinvented the whole juice bar notion, kind of taking the Starbucks approach, as best I could tell, to Nectar juice bars. And their drinks, their food, everything is delicious and healthy. And it's a total entrepreneurial story, very pioneering. And I'm anxious to hear what's been happening with Steve and Nectar since COVID, and how actually the story of how he took this on and saw something that other people didn't see.
And it's now a $100 million business. So all of you have dreams, or you are an entrepreneur, want to grow your business, this is your program for you. But also, how do you survive during this insanity called coronavirus? So Steve, welcome to the program.
Welcome, Steve. Great to have you on.
Hey, it's great to be here, Robert. And I think you bring up a couple very good points as far as entrepreneurship, so to speak. I started Nectar in 2010, and it was probably after 20 failed businesses and swinging and missing, and occasionally I get a base hit every now and then, and to survive enough to sort of pay the rent. But it never crossed my mind to stop or to give up, and so it wasn't until I was probably 49 years old that I started Nectar. But it was those failures over the prior 20 or 30 years that enabled me, I think, to really make Nectar possible. So
I thank you for saying that, because I think it's one of the biggest mistakes our academic system instills in young children's minds, that if you make a mistake, it means you're a failure. And when you look at humans learn, especially entrepreneurs, we learn from our mistakes. And unfortunately, most people, what my rich dad always said to me, the reason people are not successful is they haven't made enough mistakes. And if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. So I thank you for saying that at the start.
No, and you're absolutely right about that. And it never bothered me to make a mistake. It never crossed my mind. If the business didn't work, I didn't lose a night of sleep. I mean, yes, I lost a night of sleep every now and again, but you pursued and, went ahead. But anyway, on we go. Back to Nectar.
So Steve, so how'd you get into juice bars and healthy juice, healthy foods?
I'll try and make the story short. So at the time, as you guys may know, I was producing infomercials. And at that particular time, the infomercial business got very, very difficult during the financial crisis. Simultaneously, the infomercial that I was trying to produce was a cleanse. And as you know, maybe back in 2010 to 15 or 16, a 1 day or a 3 day cleanse where you drink just juices was extremely popular. But it was a perishable product. It was very heavy. You couldn't ship it to the East Coast. And so I didn't really know what to do with it. Simultaneously, I started going to a mother's market, which is similar to Whole Foods. And I was sitting there, every time I go in, I'd ask them how many juices they would sell. They'd say, 200 to 300 a day, 200 to 300 a day. And one thing led to another, and I did a little bit of due diligence. And sure enough, if you look at the legacy brands, you found that they were filled with sugar and filled with crap and just awful for you. They had become sort of a glorified Dairy Queen. And then I also saw a seismic shift in the way society was starting to purchase with Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Fresh Fare and things like that. So then it came to mind saying, wait a minute, I've got a place to sell these cleanses. What if I get rid of all the crap and all the shit that all these legacy brands put in there and come up with something simple, authentic, it tastes good. And rather than try and be elitist, what if we make it affordable and accessible to anybody that desired a healthy lifestyle? So kind of followed the in-and-out model of 6 juices, 6 smoothies, and 4 bowls. and nothing processed, and the filler in the smoothies and bowls is coconut water or house-made nut milk, and that's how it started.
So let me ask, let's step back 1 second, is that you talk about the cleanse, and today I'm on day 21 of a cleanse. And,
Yes.
and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but I do it about twice a year because, I feel better. My head clears up and all this. So what is it time to plug the idea of a cleanse? Why are cleanses important to people?
There's a couple things going on, I think. I think that a lot of times you see some companies promote the cleanse as a way to detoxify the body. And I don't really see it that way. I see it more as a way to give your body a break from eating all the processed and heavy foods. If the three of us went out to, Steak 44, tonight, and we had ribeye steak and a big glass of wine.
Oh, you're killing me. You're killing me. Steve, this is day 21. You're hitting below the belt right now.
Yeah, see, no, that's not fair, is it? Especially on day 21, I think you said. So, so I think it's very good to give the body a break, to sort of rejuvenate, and and people, I think, should do it more often. I don't think I've never been one for cessation diets. I think intermittent fasting is taking on a big role these days. I think that's a unique and not a bad way to go. But I think the body's doing a break. So
yeah. And it's a cardiologist it's a personal cardiologist, Dr. Radha Gopalan, and his fiancée Nicole. The reason they recommend it, it says it makes your insides younger. It gives them a break to rehab, to get stronger, get younger. So anything that makes me younger, especially at my age, I'm for. But I think the first thing I notice is I have spots on my face as I get older. They disappear. That's the.
Well, the other thing that you're getting a lot of it's usually cold pressed, and so for us anyway, you've got a lot of very dense nutrients that usually you don't get, which I think is an important aspect of it. And I think that if you look at people today, compared to whenever it was, I think a 70-year-old today is in all likelihood in better shape or feels better than when they were 50. I know that I know at my age of 58, I feel better than I did at 35. I think that just being more conscientious of, treating the body and food as medicine, and conscientious about what you put into your body, except those steaks that we may have one of these days, I think is very, very important.
Well, I have to ask this question for Kim. What about good wine?
Yes,
wine is healthy. Red wine is healthy.
Juice by day, juice by night, right?
Yeah, it's grape juice. Hey, so let me ask you, Steve. So when you opened, because a lot of entrepreneurs are wondering. So when you opened your first store, which was in California, yes?
Yes, 2010 we opened our first store.
Did you have a plan that, okay, we're going to open one and then we're going to expand to this many, or was it we're going to open one, see how it does? Can we make this a model? Can it work? What was your thinking?
Two things I'm going to answer a little bit backwards. One is money was never an objective, really. We opened the juice bar just because we were passionate about it. I didn't think about opening number 2 or 3. It just didn't even cross my mind. After the first one opened, people said, and it was literally like 3 or 4 miles away, I can't drive all this way. Can you? I'm like, okay, we'll open another one. And then people said, hey, I can't drive all this way. Can you open another one? And so, the way that we looked at it was we were, serving the community. We enjoyed what we were doing, and we continue to enjoy what we're doing, but it never was a passion play on, from an economic standpoint, that if I do this, oh my gosh, I'm going to make X, Y, and Z. Now, certainly there are disciplines you need to take that are important, cost of goods and labor and, things of that nature. But that wasn't the motivation at all.
And how many stores do you have today?
170.
Wow, congratulations.
And believe it or not, we're opening, it's the craziest thing. We're opening, to me, it seems a little bit crazy, but we're opening we're opening stores right in the middle of this COVID deal. We opened in Colorado Springs last weekend and did $2,500 our first day. We opened another one this past weekend. We're about a 30-70. We've got a 40-45 corporate stores. The rest are franchised, but we've continued to sign franchise agreements during this crisis. So I was quite surprised by that. Really.
Oh,
well, congratulations, because that's an interesting business model, franchising.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, franchise, and we were scared of it. We had 12 stores, and we'd been in the business 2 years, and I'd seen so many companies that have one location, and next thing they have, you just read the headline, hey, I have 2,000 franchises or some stupid number. And I'm like, wait a minute. If you only have one store, how do you know how to really operate it? So I wanted to make sure that we awarded 6 in 2012 and sat on it for 2 years and continued to grow the business model. So it was a good 5 years in. I just didn't feel as though we knew the systems well enough to franchise, until we really knew the system inside and out. Right. I really didn't have anything to sell in my mind.
Well, we had that learning experience, right, Kim?
Yes, we have. So go ahead.
I have a question. So let's say we have a listener sitting at home and they're social distancing or whatever thing they've got set up here. And they're thinking about, maybe I should start my own business, but especially your type of business where it's density, people coming in and out and all this. What would you say to somebody who wants to become an entrepreneur? What would you say if there was 3 things they should be considering today, sitting at home, collecting money from the government? What are the 3 traits you say an entrepreneur must have?
Oh, I think that, for me, I think it's pretty simple. I think an entrepreneur has to have a innate, I'm not sure necessarily it's innate, the innate curiosity. I think that that it's extremely important that people do it. I think that have a curiosity about all things. I'm interested in all sorts of things, but I think they've got to have a curiosity to it. I think that they've got to have the ability to block out the white noise. Again, I think too many people, I might ask, Robert's opinion, I might ask 50 people's different opinions, but that's just going to just paralyze me. And then the third thing that they've got to do is they've just got to move forward. I think that they just have to overcome that inertia of that idea and not be scared of it. Too many people just can't get off the snide, so to speak. I think it's a shame, really.
Well, I think, the hardest thing today, and it was always hard, was you have to be responsible for your paycheck and the benefits and the real estate and the
expenses.
You know what I mean? And then
and the inventory.
Oh, the white noise, you say, are the words of terror. But what if I fail?
Well, and the other thing is, I think that people sometimes look at it as they talk themselves into an all or nothing, meaning they shouldn't look at it as though they're going to replace their paycheck or replace, their benefits. You've got to go into it slowly and not, quit your job the next day, but, test the waters. And they've also got to understand what it takes to be successful. And a lot of folks think they do, but I think they've got to test themselves a little, test their mettle a little bit in the sense of, better than anybody else. You're giving up Friday nights and you're giving up weekends. You're giving up barbecue and beers with your buddies and whatever it may be quite often. And a lot of people, when they realize that, it's not quite worth the sacrifice. Yeah, and if you go into it, halfway, that's just not simply going to work. And so I think people have an idealistic view of what they see the end, but not. What's ironic is they see the end result of maybe this pot of gold, but what they don't realize, and I'm sure you, Robert, you felt this way, is that when I've been most passionate about the brand isn't the pot of gold, it's the struggle getting there. It's building it up and fighting and staying open and getting that next door and meeting the payroll and getting people, hiring people. That's, when you get to, not that we're a huge company, but we're large enough where I'm dealing with different issues that I dealt with, 10 years ago. Those issues 10 years ago of running out of nut milk and having to go to every mother's market in Orange County to buy them out because we needed all the nut milk. That is what, when I think back, or 20 years from now when I look back, that's what I'll look back on. Not the pot of gold is somewhat irrelevant to the discussion of where the satisfaction came from.
Well, I tell you what, personally, this is my bugaboo when somebody says, but today's my day off. Or, I go, what else? Oh, it's, I have this leave or something. I'm going, for me personally, since I became an entrepreneur, I haven't had a day off yet. I have a lot of freedom, but I don't have a day off, if you know what I mean. It's my brain is cranky.
I mean, whether it's a Saturday or Friday or Thursday or Monday or Sunday, there is no such thing as a day off, and your clock doesn't stop, but you don't care really either. I mean, sometimes things can be annoying, but
I like what you're saying, Steve, that you a lot of people think they can go halfway. You know, they can go in halfway, and they can have it both ways. They can have their successful business, and they can still stay comfortable. But there is not really comfortable. And I love a quote that you have that says, you either evolve or die. I mean, that's true. I mean, especially today, given COVID, maybe when we come back from our break, I'd love to find out, you know, how are you evolving through this? I mean, you're opening stores right now, which is incredible, which congratulations. But how do people evolve through this crisis that's unfortunately hurting so many people, business owners and entrepreneurs? It's very sad.
It's killing us.
Yeah. So do we have?
It is terrible. I mean, Arizona's got the right track. I think they're on track, and they're doing what they should be doing. California is just
oh God, the
governor, the mayor, they ought to be ashamed of themselves.
They should be.
Oh God.
Yeah, they should
be. Hey, look, don't get me started on that one. Anyway, when we come back,
there's going to be a mass exodus out of California, no doubt. No doubt.
We'll talk about why Arizona is booming because people are leaving the Communist Republic of California. We'll come back.
I'm a good example of that. We recently bought a home over here in Scottsdale, and the intent is to, make this my residence and go back and forth to California.
I don't know how you can afford the taxes and regulations. Anyway, when we come back, we have more with Steve Schultz and Nectar and what it takes to be an entrepreneur during a crisis. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Today we have a guest, Steve Schultz. He's talking about his amazing brand startup, expanding rapidly even during this COVID crisis. It's called Nectar. So you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime on iTunes. I don't have my glasses on, but anyway, you can tune in. YouTube has us.
Android, YouTube, iTunes. There you go.
And all of our programs are archived because we archive them. So because we're an education company, we don't have any stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or real estate to sell you. And we sell pure financial education, especially for entrepreneurs and investors and stuff like that. So you can listen. We archive this on Rich Dad Radio so you can listen to this program again, because repetition is in the real world how we learn. Like you don't learn to be a golfer taking one golf lesson and taking on Tiger Woods the next week. That's not the real world, but a lot of people have those fantasies at least or delusions. So listen to the Rich Dad Radio program again. Go to Rich Dad Radio, listen to this program again. You'll pick up twice as much. But more importantly, if you have friends, family, and especially business associates, and you're wondering what's happened to your business or how you're going to face the future, this program could be the most important Rich Dad program, Rich Dad Radio program you can listen to, because it's about the real world of being an entrepreneur. So again, Steve, thanks for being part of this program. And any comments, Kim?
Well, yes, and our guest again is Steve Schultz. He's the co-founder and CEO of Nectar Juice Bar. And what I love about this story, Steve, is you are the ultimate entrepreneur in that, as we have had so many failures, you talk about early failures, and then you start with one store because you've got a passion for healthy juices, and today you've got $100 million business.
And expanding during the crisis.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate entrepreneurial story, and I think it's one that everybody can learn so much from.
And that did, during the COVID, that did surprise me. To have discovery days and sign franchise agreements and see stores opening, clearly I questioned the idea with my team. I'm like, should we be opening? I'm not. But sure enough,
it worked.
So, so Steve, quickly, what was the biggest challenge that Corona caused you? Because did you have to shut down and all that?
Yeah. I think it was devastating. I think that there was an initial shock to everybody that this kind of thing could happen without going into the whole deal. And for the first 3, so sales just literally fell off the cliff. We went from $250,000 a day to $40,000 or $50,000 a day, which obviously can be a little bit impactful. So and it was that way for about 3 weeks. And so we huddled trying to figure out, what was going to be the response to it. And ironically, the principles and foundation in which we were founded, which were health, wellness, immunity, freshness in 2010, really applied today more than ever. And then it became convenience. And because we had spent quite a bit of money in technology back in 2015 with, Starbucks had done such a great job with their order ahead app that they have, and the rewards program that we started in 2015. I think we launched in 16. I think we did about $10,000 our first month. We now have, fast forward, we have, I think, 700,000 people ordering on our app. Upwards of the weekly orders are absolutely enormous. And so the idea that we could adapt the app, make it convenient, make it quick, we can make it curbside. If you Robert jumps out of the shower, places his order, walks down to Hilton Village, he can either walk in and get a contactless pickup or have somebody bring it up curbside. And I think that the idea of, for us, we were fortunate in the space that we were in a health and wellness space, and people were very conscious of that, which I think is
well. I give you a lot of congratulations. As Kim and I know, this naturopath who was attempting to do the same thing. He was producing fresh squeezed juices, and it didn't work. So why is yours working?
Well, I think it has to do with being established. I don't know if the gentleman you're speaking about in particular is new in the sense, and occasionally is people trying to jump on a certain. Well, the stores started with grocery stores.
Steve, hold it. You see, a lot of people tell me all you have to have is passion. I go, it takes a little bit more than that, sweetheart. So this guy,
do what you love, and the money will follow.
This guy is hardcore, passionate health. I mean, his whole life is dedicated. Anytime I want to find out how to be healthier without pharmaceuticals, he's the go-to guy. And he did what you did. He swears by fresh juices. So he opens this huge business. I think I met some of his partners.
Well, that was the problem. We met some of the partners, and we're like, "This is a train wreck."
I met his partners, and they were a bunch of losers, hoping to become entrepreneurs, but they were just losers the whole time. And he was carrying the load. I'm going, Jesus, what the heck's your business? I mean, you're a naturopath. What the hell are you doing in the juice business?
Right. Clearly he tried to capitalize on something. I think that. And I think passion all of a sudden, I think passion very often gets misconstrued in the sense of, I wasn't 8, 12, 15, 20 years old and said, I want to grow up to be a juicer. So I think this idea of you mentioned a moment ago, like, hey, whatever your passion is, follow it. I'm passionate about trees or, that just isn't the case. I mean, I think that, you see all and what you talked about when prior to introducing the second segment, I think that, there is so much crap out there in the internet of buy this book, buy this tape, go to this seminar. We'll teach you how to do it. I challenge all those guys to try and go ahead and go and see how well they do. Read their book and have them do it themselves. And I don't think we're going to see very much success doing it. So I think that this whole passion thing is misconstrued. It's more of a interest, a curiosity, a motivation, a stick-to-itiveness, and then the passion comes with the people and the response and. So it's not necessarily always the juice. It's, the people that you're really embracing. It's the guests. It's everybody else. So I think that, and I think that's reflective in the, in the service or business or restaurant or whatever it may be that you go into. You can see it. You can feel it. There's something to it.
I think, but you said it earlier in the show, it's about, you got to be curious. Because I want to know why you're so successful.
But our friend, he's a naturopath, and he's passionate about naturopathy. And so you said earlier, you can't go halfway. He's either in the juice business or he is the naturopath. But to do both is really, really difficult. You got to be all in.
Probably and the other thing I think that people forget is that a lot of people believe that you're building the brand, that Robert's building the brand, that I'm building the brand, that naturopath is building the brand, and that's not true. It's the guest that's building the brand. And it's our job to steward the brand.
Good point.
Amen.
Good point.
Amen.
Good point.
That's one of the best things I've heard.
And
who's your customer?
Is just absolutely ridiculous. So all these people out there. And so I think that what your friend was trying to do is certainly capitalize on this situation. He was trying to put something to the guest rather than the guest. He just had it all backwards. Basically, everything he did was just backwards. So you could tell from the beginning. Meaning, if he would have come to me and talked to me about it. I would have told him exactly what would have happened, and I probably would have been pretty right.
Well, Kim and I said it earlier, is that we liked his idea and all that, so he invited us to a first-round finance meeting, and we met his team, and we're out within, I think, less than 5 minutes. These guys were losers.
Well, one person
You know what I mean?
was there because she wanted a job. She wasn't a partner. She wanted a job. But
they have executive decision-making power, but they weren't competent. You know, I asked a couple of questions. They knew nothing about being an entrepreneur. They're employees. Nothing wrong with being an employee, but they had no real life experience.
No, you've got to have that. I think that, you know, for us, you know, we've been doing it for 8 or 10, actually 10 years, and our 10-year anniversary is coming up in October. And I think we had built a trust in our brand. We had a fairly wide breadth of the guest, and then I think the most important thing that we had to do is listen. You know, we really had to, and we spent a lot of time listening to our team members. And what I mean by that is our store level team members that were, you know, in the trenches, so to speak, our corporate staff, our franchisees, and then most importantly, the guests. And so the goal for us over that sort of 3-week period when, you know, everything was falling off the cliff was trying to listen on what they were looking for, what they needed, what they would make them feel safe. And then for us, it came to really crafting a branding message towards them. And so it's a matter of, that's how so as far as the difference probably between, you know, his response and my response was, we took 3 weeks, we listened to, you know, our, you know, tens of thousands of guests, or as many as we could through all sorts of mediums, whether it be surveys, Zoom meetings, focus, all this kind of stuff to find out what they really needed during this time.
So 2 points. One thing I hear differently is you don't ever say customer, you say guest. And that's kind of a mind shift way of looking at things. These are guests, not customers. I think that's excellent. And then you talk about Zoom meetings and all your surveys and all of this and the technology behind it. So with the COVID, we were talking earlier that all three of us have never done so many Zoom calls and Zoom meetings and interviews and all of this. So how do you see technology evolving out of this?
You know, as we know, business is smart. You know, we saw, you know, all of us go back whatever number of years ago, we'd stand in line in the airport with our paper tickets, and the airline industry was over. Sure enough, we have kiosks. We don't see anybody. We're being charged for our seats. You know, it's just a seamless process, even though TSA is there, sort of a seamless process. So I think with restaurants, clearly there are going to be some seismic changes with this, you know, whether it be the, you know, buffet style type ordering, like the yogurt land, the self-service yogurt land and things. There's some concepts that simply won't be, I'm not suggesting they won't make it through it, but I'm just saying that have really deep-seated problems that are fundamental to, you know, how people respond to it. I think this, the reaction from the government reaction, I think has paralyzed too many people. I think what the media has done and the government has done is just awful as far as the mental mindset of people. And I think that is going to cause so much damage that the people, you know, some people won't be able to climb back. And I do think that technology is certainly going to play a role. And I don't think it has to be vast, because I don't think you can overwhelm people with technology. You just have to sort of expand upon those little baby steps to make it easier, simpler, safer, more convenient, but don't overwhelm them with too much.
So how did you use technology at the start with Nectar?
Did we use technology at the start? Well, the very first POS machine I bought was a micro machine, which was basically built for a fine dining. It's like an $8,000 machine.
What's POS?
Thing in the world.
What's POS?
Yeah, a point of service. It's a little. It's the thing. Not the thing. The cash register. Cash register, I guess you would call it. And so everything's evolved. And so what we've done is we've partnered with NCR, and we've set up APIs, which are these networks in which we can now, which is important for COVID. I'm kind of jumping pretty fast here, but so now what we can do is we have all the DSP, which are delivery service providers, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Postmates, all those. And the orders will now go directly into our POS machine, our little register by the counter, pop up the order, and then print the ticket, you know, at the juicing station or at the smoothie station or whatever. If you go from a technology investment standpoint, if you go 6 months ago, you would have 4 different iPads, each one from DoorDash, one from Postmates, and then you would manually have to put it into the machine. And so back in January, we started working with them and said, this is getting too labor intensive. Let's build an API so we could directly go into our machines. And so now all of a sudden we can do promotions with all of the DPSs. It goes right to our POS. We don't have to do a thing. All we got to do is hit that we've accepted it, and bam, the order pops out, instead of paying attention to see if something pops up on my, like a text message pops up or something. So I think that was an important investment that we made early on. So
it made you more efficient. You could increase revenue and reduce expenses.
You can. All of a sudden you look at it, and again, you look at you talk about some of this COVID stuff, and I think what's going to happen is that there will be some COVID expenses involved. Right now, it's looking like it's about $3 to $5 a day in sanitary and other things. But I do think that labor fundamentally will be a little bit lower, because I think the takeout will considerably increase. We just simply won't have the in-dining experience. Spaces in all likelihood will become a little bit smaller. The build-outs may become a little bit less. So I think there's going to be some efficiencies involved in that. And labor is going to be the most important one, especially with labor around the country. California in particular just going through the roof. So if we can drop our labor a little bit, that'll help. So
how much? I was listening to the former CEO of McDonald's, and he said their businesses, if they didn't have that drive-through business, I think it's 40% of their business.
Yeah, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But he says that's hard for an established restaurant to add a drive-through if you're in the middle of a mall or something.
Yeah.
And so
and it's funny. We've always wanted to. There's two things. One is we've always wanted to do drive-throughs, but with Starbucks, it's very difficult. Being the same size as a Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, it's very difficult for us to compete with the prices that they're willing to pay. But for us during the COVID, because we're a takeout restaurants, we had the liberty of people, coming in, placing an order and leaving, or going online and ordering it. So for us, it's going to be more of a convenience type situation. We did see our deliveries go from about 33% to 54%.
So that's my final question. There's Uber Eats and Grubhub and all that. Well, are they in the right place at the right time, or were they?
Well, what I think that they are reaping the rewards of this situation, but I think in short order there's going to be. It reminds me a little bit of the travel agency business. Back, you used to get 10% of, a plane ticket, and then there's $50, and who knows what they get today. Yes, there's labor involved, but the idea that they can get 23% and then charge $5.99, $6.99 for delivery and all the way through, I think there's, you're going to have some people that are a lot smarter, a lot more efficient, that are going to build some labor metrics into it, so it does work for the restaurants and it does work for the program. But they are, you live and die with them right now. You don't have them, and you're really, in some trouble. But the prices they charge are quite egregious, really.
Who's this, the Grubhubs and stuff like that? Yeah,
they charge basically, the way that it works is they charge almost anybody, and we do a tremendous amount of business, and they still charge us 23% of the gross sale. And on top of that, we'll charge a delivery fee of $3.99 to $6.99.
We'll charge it.
A $7 juice costs you $18, and that's just not the way, the way it works. Now, we've negotiated down with some of those rates and such, and they have allowed some flexibility to it. But I think we're going to see some changes in that industry.
In terms of entrepreneurship, and somebody's wanting to start today, is now a time to start?
Oh, I think that, and again, we go back to the common interest that Robert and I have on curiosity. I think there's always a time to start. I don't think that, whether I would start today or that it would be irrelevant on what was going on in today's society. And that may not mean that I'd launch it today, but I'd be working forward. I'd be going through, seeing what changes I need to make to my plan to execute. But my passion for it and my desire and my stick-to-itiveness, while it may hit a speed bump, it's not going to stop me. And as a matter of fact, speaking of that, I'm looking at investing and starting a number of businesses as we speak, and that hasn't slowed down one bit. So
I always say that we have a bust downstairs of Albert Einstein, and his saying is, imagination is more important than knowledge. And I think that's one of the keys to being an entrepreneur right now, because there's millions of entrepreneurs looking at the restaurant business, which is a mega monster business, and they're coming up with a new idea right now how they're going to solve this problem. Would you say that's true? They're trying to figure out another way of doing it?
Well, I think they are. You've got some that believe that it's the death of the restaurant business and it's all, dark clouds. And then you have the other half that would be like myself and you, that like, there's a huge opportunity. With challenge comes opportunity, and this is a perfect chance to take advantage of it. Not take advantage of, but look at the opportunity within what we're going through. And I think that as Nectar as a brand, we're going to come out stronger, bigger, more profitable, more locations, more density, more awareness. So I couldn't be more positive about the future than I've been in years.
Amen. So that I would say that's probably the number one lesson for entrepreneur is if somebody else is struggling, that's your opportunity. And they're going to figure out how to do it better, more efficient, and more effectively. And I think that's really what, the curiosity and passion and all that comes from.
Things also exploit where you were making mistakes. All of a sudden, whether it be in G&A and you're a little bit fat and heavy in certain areas and this and that, it exploits those, underbellies or underlines of what you're doing and allows you to make modifications, which again, force you to be better and more efficient.
Right.
And I think the team members appreciate it. I think that the guests will appreciate it. And, so we learn and grow.
So, Steve, thank you very much. I mean, your message is inspiring, on target, on message, and for real.
Yeah. And one of the things I love, too, and I think one of the traits of a successful entrepreneur is very positive, very realistic, but also positive. So you got people out there going, oh, it's the death of the restaurant industry. And you're saying, no, this is the best opportunity right now. And I think that's one of the strongest traits of an entrepreneur. Good to hear.
Guys, I really
Good
appreciate that. I couldn't be honored more than be on the show, and we'll look forward to that dinner at Steak 44.
There we go. You're on.
Nice bottle of wine once you slow down on this fast.
The last day of my cleanse, 21 days. Anyway, Steve, thank you.
Really enjoy it. Thank you.
Hey, enjoy your day. Great. Thanks,
hey, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. Thanks to Steve Schultz of Nectar. I'm sitting here with Kim. It's one of our really more interesting on-target shows, right?
Totally on target. I mean, you got an entrepreneur that was struggling. He had all these failures. He was in the infomercial business in 2008 when that kind of came apart.
Came apart for us, too.
Yeah. And then 2 years later, he starts this little juice bar because he's got a passion for fresh juices and healthy juices. And now he's got 170 stores and really kind of very similar to our story. It's like we started, with the board game. We didn't have a 5-year plan on how we were going to do it and how we were going to roll it out. We didn't have a plan for Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but you just have that resilience and that do it.
It's been more than a roller coaster ride. It's been a blimp and crash ride. We've had so many failures, so many horrible things happen. But I don't know. I think that's what keeps you going. So once again, listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes or Android and YouTube. Please leave a comment for the show, and you can listen to the program anytime, anywhere. Listen to this program. Go to richdadradio.com. Listen to this again. Why? Because if you listen to it again, you'll learn twice as much, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. If this is not interesting to you, don't be an entrepreneur. The journey is too effing hard. And then also, if you have friends, family, and business associates, listen to this and discuss this program because your intelligence will go up. And really, that's the most important thing today is get your intelligence up. Because if you're hanging out with a bunch of losers, you're going down with the losers. So anyway, I want to thank Steve Schultz of Nectar. And final comments on being an entrepreneur. If I could start with your dad and Kim's, when I was getting serious about Kim back in the 80s, first thing he asked me is, do you have a job? What did your dad say? What did you say? Well,
that was his road. That was his path. His path was he followed in his father's footsteps, and he got a job and worked his way up the corporate ladder and became an executive in the companies. And that was how he saw the path to financial security.
Yeah.
And so when he said, do you have a job? And you said no. And then on top of it, I called him one day and said, hey, I just quit my job and I'm going to go venture into this new, I want to start my own business. And it was like, oh my God, what's happened here? But he was also extremely supportive. Yeah. It was just a little bit of shock in the beginning and then very, very supportive.
Yeah, it was a point of contention because there's two different mindsets between corporate employees. and entrepreneurs. And for those of you like sports, the way I look at it is this: a corporate employee, climb the corporate ladder and all this stuff, make it from starting the mailroom and become a CEO of a company, which is a dream of many mailroom clerks. Is the difference between American football or gridiron. You have a quarterback, and the quarterback calls all the plays. But most entrepreneurs are like rugby, whereas everybody can carry the ball, everybody's free-flowing, is moving at high speed. But that's the difference. They're two different characters. Like, I enjoyed American football. I was a fat guy, so I was always on the line. I had no speed. And the quarterback would get up there and he'd tell me, okay, you go hit this guy, hit that guy. So I'm waiting on the line, being told what to do. And then he goes up there, call the play, plays over, everybody takes a break, has a Coke, and then discuss the next play. It just didn't fit me. So I played football, American gridiron, all the way through college. And I just didn't feel at home. And then one day I went out and played rugby. I was in flight school in Florida. I was at home because it's a fluid style. And I think that's what we adopted at Rich Dad, right?
Exactly what we adopted at Rich Dad. We have a team that works together. And I love how Steve was talking about his team, and he listens to his team, and he listens to his guests and his customers. And it has made all the difference in our company.
So Sarah is our producer this thing. We're not really that climb the corporate ladder kind of company, are we?
No, there's not really a ladder. It's more, what is it? Like a
plank.
Trampoline.
It's a trampoline.
Trampoline, that's a good one. Trampoline. You're bouncing all over the place.
Actually, that's true, because nobody has one role.
No.
Everybody has different hats and specialties and expertise, and you respect everybody equally.
When there's an issue that comes up, we discuss it as a group, and what's most surprising is the ideas come from the people you least expect the ideas to come from. It's like a pure synergy.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm always impressed with our staff. They're so smart. I keep telling Sarah, Sarah, how'd you get so smart? Did you get into the MBA program?
We're a little smarter than you and me, Robert.
Did you have an MBA, Sarah?
No.
Did you want
out
one?
Of college. I quit college. I said, this is not for me. So, but I was explaining to you, I had a whole bunch of jobs that kind of
got your experience.
collected my different tools from each job.
Yeah.
And with a ton of research, I just...
So like... Everybody in the company knows I'm the village idiot, so they kind of keep me out of there. But, I mean, I'm just always impressed how smart people are if you allow them to be smart. And that's why I never really liked gridiron. Most people love it, like Tom Brady, who just moved to Tampa and all this stuff. They get all sexually stimulated thinking about football and assigned plays and all this. Whereas rugby, you go out there, you have a couple of beers, and you start playing. And that's the way that's why I love being an entrepreneur.
Well, that kind of goes along with what Steve was saying about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. He goes, you just got to move forward. He said, first I love the thing on curiosity. Yeah. You got to be curious. You just got to be curious about every single thing. It reminds me of our friend Frank Creary. Yeah. He was, to the day he died in 92, he was curious about every single thing. Everything just excited him.
He was fascinated.
Yeah.
We could sit down. Everything. He'd come to our house for parties, and we'd have all these different people, all entrepreneurs. And the discussions were like mind-blowing. I'm doing it this way. How are you doing it that way? It's not like I'm following the corporate dogma.
He was always asking questions. He was always curious.
How'd you do that? How'd you make your money? What was this, And so I think this is one of our better programs for those of you who want to be entrepreneurs, want to grow your business as entrepreneurs, or maybe you should not be an entrepreneur. I don't recommend it. Do you, Kim?
I don't recommend it for everybody. I recommend it for the hardy and the resilient and those who want to persevere and those who really want to be free. I mean, you said it very well. You said it's not easy, but it is freeing. You don't, what did you say? You don't have control necessarily over all your time, but you are free.
Right. And I'm 24/7
work every day. Yeah, but we're free.
And the final story I want to tell is our governor, Doug Ducey, used to run the Cold Stone Creamery franchise. I remember one day we were laughing, Kenny, Kim, and I, Kenny McRoy, and we were laughing. And Doug says, I got to go. This is before he was governor. I said, where are you going? He says, I got to fly to California. This is from Phoenix to California. I said, why? He says some franchisee is selling pickles in a Cold Stone Creamery franchise, and you better play by the rules.
Because we don't sell pickles at Cold Stone Creamery.
So he had to stop the party. You have to get a plane and fly to California and personally remove the pickle jar from the Cold Stone Creamery franchisees wanting to not follow the rules. So anyway, those are some of the lessons you can never, ever learn from a textbook or an MBA program. Once again, I want to thank Steve Schultz of Nectar. Thanks, Sarah, for your contribution, and Kim for your wisdom on this whole thing. And thank you all for listening to The Rich Dad Radio.
Thank you very much.
Will